Welcome. And today I have a special guest to talk to us about the philosophy of education. Welcome to our program. May you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you. I'm Risper Awuor. I'm currently working at the Adventist University of Africa as the Deputy Vice-Chancellor for Academic Administration. I am a mother. That is very important for me. I'm a mother of 4, 1 girl, 3 sons. And they are all grown. All of them are all grown. My husband died in 2012. Since then, I've been single like this. And being single when you are already old is not bad. You thank God because you had a life. We had lived for like 38 years. So it is just part of life, and it gives you different types of responsibilities within the home setting. But it is something that God has been helping me very well to manage together with my professional life. I have my son, Cherian. The next one is Steve. Cherian is here. Steve is in the United States. And then I have my daughter, Mercy, also a nurse in Orlando, Florida. And our last son, Victor, who is a neurosurgeon in Columbus, Ohio. So that is me. I like to talk about my mother because my mother is still alive. She's alive. She's about 102, and she still moves. She goes to her garden and does her own things. She was sick recently, but she's doing well now, very well. So I thank God for everything. I have all the reasons to thank God.
Wow, that's wonderful. What is your major responsibility at AUA?
My major responsibility, as I see it, is to mainly work closely with my supervisor, who is the Vice-Chancellor, and to advise on matters that are related to academic administration. I work closely with the deans. Together we provide the oversight for a quality assurance in the academic area. And I also see my responsibility also to ensure that I work closely with the finance people, my counterpart in finance, so that as we plan the strategic plans of the university, we are sure of financial solvency, and also we are sure that we are good stewards, both in the academic area and also in the financial area. Together, we advise the Vice-Chancellor of the university so everything can coordinate well, and the responsibility that we are charged with to be caretakers in the administration are well coordinated.
That sounds like a heavy load. Now we come to your career. What has been your career path?
I'm an educator. I started from elementary school. I'm a trained elementary school teacher. I've been an elementary school principal. And then I went to teach in high school. I taught in high school like a prelude. It was a shorter time than what I have done in elementary school and also in higher education. But I see myself as a teacher. As I was growing up, I went to school to be a teacher, like my uncle. And so teaching has been something that I am very passionate about. I'm an educator. And so it is something that I do not do and look somewhere else. I do it because that is my career, that is my career path, that is my way of life. So I've been a teacher throughout my life. my professional life. Even now I teach.
Wow. The Lord is so heavy and you still can teach. I can say that's a passion.
Yes, it is, because when I teach, I feel fulfilled. So I get out of the administrative work and teach. Formerly, I used to teach in home economics. My first degree is in religion, home economics, and education. But later on, I diverted just a little bit at PhD level and did applied statistics. So right now I teach applied statistics, which is educational methods in social and behavioral sciences. So that is what I do now. And I teach.
Wow.
I teach at AUS. I teach also for some people online. I teach for Northern Caribbean University, where I taught before. So once in a while I teach online for them as an adjunct for a short time.
That's wonderful. It's nice to do what you're passionate about.
Yes.
Now we come to the philosophy of education. What is the philosophy of education?
You know, philosophy of education is very hard to define because it is really like a set of questions. Somebody can define it as a set of relevant questions that can be seen to explain why people do what they do in education. Philosophy can be viewed as a vision, the vision one has for education and schooling. It can be seen as a set of beliefs. What is it that is inside somebody, the belief that somebody has of what education is and what schooling is. It can be seen also as a set of related influence that governs what students should be, how they should be taught, who should be the students. So it is like when you are dealing with philosophy, you are asking yourself questions. What should be school like? Who should be the students? How should they be taught? Who should teach them? How should they be prepared to teach? All those define what philosophy is. So philosophy of education represents answers to all those questions. Mm-hmm. When you answer those questions, then you can say, now, this is philosophy for me. This is philosophy that I believe in. And in fact, when you think of philosophy and you also observe what is going on in different organizations, for example, Buddhists have their philosophy. They may have a philosophy of life, and that philosophy of life may influence a school that is a Buddhist school. Adventists may have a philosophy that governs behavior and governs how students can be taught and what they should be taught. So when you think of philosophy, it is hard to define because when you have a set of questions, it makes you ask more questions. Mm-hmm. And it makes you look at your environment. You look at the world as a result of philosophy. So I would say that philosophy is a vision, in short, is a vision of what education is, very broadly defined.
Okay, I hear a lot about Adventist philosophy of education, and now you've described philosophy of education. Is that the same as the Adventist philosophy of education, or that's different?
In fact, before I go into the Adventist philosophy of education, I want to say that philosophy is like a trunk of a tree, in my mind. And this trunk of a tree is set in the soil. And the tree is growing, and it has branches. In the philosophy of education, we have three main branches: the metaphysics, which is the study of reality. What is real? You know, it is something that you can think about when you are thinking of what is real. You need to know that what is real to you may not be real to me. And when I say it is real, you better believe me because it is in my mind and it is real. That study of what is real and what our students should see as what is real, when what is knowledge and what is real and what is truth, that is a branch of philosophy, the metaphysics, what is existence, what is it, the reality. And then we also have another branch, the second branch, that is epistemology. And epistemology deals with the nature and scope of knowledge. The nature and scope of knowledge, what is true, what is belief, what is justifiable, what is justification. All these, like I said before, philosophy dealing with how you can answer these questions is a set of questions that relevant questions that people ask about education. And then the third branch of philosophy is the axiology, which has to do with what is it that is beautiful? What is of value? Because if something is of value, it has aesthetic value also. What is beautiful? So these three branches generate the questions that when you can answer, then you can determine what the philosophy is, the pathway that you would want that education to go toward. What is that education that we want? What do we want the children to learn? And what is truth? What is real? What is it of value that we want to bring into our school system? So when you ask about the Adventist philosophy of education, you know what I have described is philosophy of education in general. Mm-hmm. It is, we think of philosophy, and then we have all these branches, they are everywhere. Philosophy of education in the world can be defined like what I've said so far. So what is it that makes the Adventist philosophy of education? The Adventist philosophy of education, as George Knight visions it, is not different from any other philosophy if it is not anchored in the Word of God. You know, we read in the Bible, I am the vine, you are the branches. And if you think of the vine, the branches will not give the leaves that are not the leaves of the vine. It will give the leaves that are known as leaves of the vine. It will give the branches that are branches of the vine. And when the vine is cut, there will be no fruits, there will be no leaves, they'll dry up. So I would say that the philosophy of Adventist education, anchored in the Word of God, if the Word of God is not there, then whatever value, whatever is real, whatever is truth, whatever is believed, whatever is just the justification, they are no longer in accordance to the vine, because the vine has been cut. You have removed the Word of God from it. So what I view as the difference between the philosophy, any other philosophy of education that any institution may have, and the Adventist philosophy of education, is that the philosophy of Adventist education is based on the Word of God. And the Word of God the Word of God is truth. It is like, how true do you know it is true? You know, as a researcher, as a statistician also, we look at, objective truth, and it is always true with a certain degree of error. What is true from man's eye, or when you collect data, you can analyze to arrive at truth. You gather information from people to arrive at truth, but it is always true with a degree of error. So this truth that we get from the human perspective is true with some degree of error. That error may be 10%, 5%. By default, in most cases, is 5%. In medical line, that is too much. In medical line, it should be less than 1%. But you see, that degree of error is not the truth I'm talking about. I'm talking about the philosophy that is anchored on the Word of God, which is the truth, the absolute truth.
Thank you so much. That's really an important aspect, that it is anchored in the Word of God. But does one have to go through Adventist educational training in an Adventist institution to understand the Adventist philosophy of education?
You know, when you go to teacher training colleges, you are taught how to teach. I was taught how to teach in a government institution as I was getting ready to go and teach in the elementary school. I was trained well. We were trained well, very well. And then I went to, this was a teacher training college that was giving diploma. And then I went to college and did education again. Read the book Farrant, very good education principles. We learned the pedagogy. It was very good pedagogy. But you see, there is something that is like what you are teaching. For example, when you teach religion, in Kenya, there is a principle that when you are a teacher of religion, you are not a preacher. A teacher is not a preacher. And we went to teach knowing that if you preached, you started sharing your life, integration of faith and learning, it is like you are influencing somebody. And that is not acceptable in the curriculum of education, because you are a teacher, you are supposed to teach and make people make their own decisions, because there are mixed religions in the classroom. But even without thinking of religion, I see philosophy of education as learning. You learn that pedagogy, you learn the education policies, and you learn the process of learning like anybody else. But what is it that gives that? What is it that is different? Do I have to go to an Adventist institution to learn this? These are learned everywhere. Anywhere you go, you learn these things. So the difference here is to understand who are these students? Why have they come to school? What is the purpose of schooling? What should they learn? And you know, in the Adventist philosophy of education, there is a goal for education. And the goal for education is to restore that image that we as human beings lost when we sinned. It is about life. It is more than just being prepared to go and get a job. So as much as I'm learning on how how I'm going to get a job and what I'm going to do at my job. There is this element of the restoration of that image that was lost. This one you do not get in secular institutions because it is something that you do not just get from the books. You also get it as a way of life that is demonstrated in the classroom. So when you train in secular institutions, sometimes there are certain elements that you may not get the way you would get it in an Adventist institution. But there are so many of our teachers who have gone to secular institutions, including myself. I trained in a secular institution first before I went to tech education in Baraton. I saw the difference, the approach that Christian teachers give in the classroom and model as a way of their own life. So it is more of looking at the life and seeing a difference in how a teacher who has Christian principles addresses issues in a learning environment. You are in an academic environment, a learning environment, but there is something that is different. So there are teachers who have missed it because they did not go to elementary school, Adventist elementary schools. They did not go to Adventist high schools. They did not go to Adventist colleges, and they are teachers. So where could they get this? You know, that is why when I came to the university, Adventist University of Africa, one of the necessary things that we have done, which is not degree, is to develop teacher certification training program. It's a certificate program for people who may have missed to have a taste of what it is to understand this doctrine based in the Bible, the history of the Adventist church history, and also the philosophy of the Adventist education, and the general well-being of a student in a caring school. So we have these three models which are part of that training, which we offer here at the Center for Continuing Education for any educator who may have missed something and may want to see what is the difference. It is very hard to know what is missing because every other university, every other teacher training college gives you the principles of pedagogy, how to teach, how to prepare your lessons, and how tells you about education policies and also the process of learning, how it takes place as is based on different theories of learning. But there is something special that we are trying to reach Africa, the whole of Africa, with this program that anybody who has missed, especially those who teach in K through 12, where the molding takes place, that they may need to be part of this. So it is something that we are really advocating that those who have missed and are teaching, especially in Adventist institutions, can reach out and benefit from.
Thank you so much that you have a solution to this missing link. When AUA students come to the institution, where exactly do they benefit? Do they get to also become adept in understanding what the Adventist philosophy of education is?
Yes, this is something that is very, very important. At the same time, I want to say that by the time the AUA students come to AUA, they are in graduate school. They are leaders. And they may gain something, but I believe in what Ellen White says. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he grows, he will not depart from it. You know, there is something that I have always admired from the American way of life and how they have grown up. What they do. Even when you are a foreigner, you go to America with your child. The bus will come by your door, take your child to school, and the child will be treated like any of the American children. They make Americans when they are young. That is a philosophy of education. They know that this is the time to make individuals. And they make individuals who are Americans in the system of education. And every country actually safeguards education more than any other department of government. Education is safeguarded. In Sweden, they even give you money to take care of you at home, the children, because they are making Swedes. The philosophy of education helps to make individuals, to make a nation. And as Adventists, the philosophy of education should help us prepare a nation that Christ is going to come for. A nation in the school system. Our school system should help us make citizens for the society, and these are citizens who are preparing also to live in a world to come. So, as an educator, I do not see a difference based on the philosophy of education that I have between me and a minister of the church. I see that we have the same goal because we are preparing students not only for life here, but also preparing that nation that Christ is going to come for. And in Isaiah chapter 2, I read that a nation does not fight. They do not fight with war tools because they have nothing to fight about. So this is the kind of society that I think every government should be aspiring for. Preparing a people who will know their destiny. They know their destiny, and therefore they are not being prepared to fight, to be jealous, to do this, to do that. And I wish that our education systems would improve. And so what I would tell the people who have not had a taste of this philosophy, Adventist philosophy of education, we offer it for a very short time. It's only 2 weeks intense, but you get all of it. That they try to get it, especially those who are teaching in K through 12. But by the time they come to Adventist University of Africa, that is a time to observe and share your views. And views, when shared, can still be modified. People can still modify their views as leaders when they come from different parts of the different countries of the world, of Africa, and they come to AUA. They can share their views, the philosophies that they hold. They look at what is working and what is not working, and there can still be adjustment. And they will still get to learn that a philosophy that is not based on the truth, which is the Word of God, is anything, can be anything. And another thing that I want to bring out is that it is important not just to think of a philosophy of an institution. Because if you do not have a personal philosophy, you cannot even fit in that philosophy of an institution that is based on Adventist philosophy of education. a personal philosophy, an individual philosophy of life. It can be it guides your life because a philosophy or belief guides the behavior. And the Adventist philosophy helps us develop an individual philosophy for life. So it becomes a way of life. So those who will be coming to AUA should see the people who are there, who are living in a certain way, have a certain way of life. They don't have to be the same because we are different people. We are different individuals. But what is our way of life? Is it being guided by a certain philosophy? And is that philosophy admirable? You know, somebody says that actually it is Lisa Beardsley Hardy. She says that a philosophy, Adventist philosophy of education, is the best teacher's repertoire. And if you do not have your own personal philosophy and you are guided by other people's philosophy, you look confused, even in your professional path or in your individual lifestyle. And that is not admirable, to have an educator who is confused.
Now, looking at what you have just explained and what one needs to be an educator in an Adventist institution, should the hiring process therefore consider the understanding of the Adventist philosophy for Adventist education institutions?
The Adventist educators in the Adventist institutions, as far as possible, should be people who buy into the same philosophy, because otherwise there will be conflicting views. And that is why I was saying that before somebody is hired, it is important to see the belief system of that person. And being a Christian institution, a person who is not a Christian, who views education differently, has different views of schooling, may not be a very good match for such an organization. So, as much as there are people who we may hire who may not be Adventists, you will realize that their philosophy of life are very close to the Adventist philosophy because they are Christians. And they are willing to learn and adapt, learn from one another and adapt. So I know that we hire some people who are non-Adventists, but they are willing to live in the company of Adventists. So that is important, which means that they have a philosophy that is not really conflicting. They believe in a certain way of education, what a child should be, what a student should be, what the school policies should be, what the principles of life should be. So if there are such people, you know, they may be a fit without being Adventists.
So would you recommend Adventist schools to members of your family?
I would not hesitate to recommend, because my children went to Adventist schools. I didn't. But I didn't go to an Adventist school myself until college. But when I learned about Adventist schools and Adventism itself and the truth from the Bible, I wanted my children to learn it when they were still young. Train up a child the way he should go was a big influence on me when I heard those words of Ellen White. And so I I believe in Adventist institution, Adventist education, and I for those particular formative years, I believe that the organization should be very careful who teaches there, because these are the formative years when people develop their philosophy of life, when they model after the people that they consider significant in their life, in their lives. So I would recommend an Adventist institution for my children. I sent my children to Maxwell. It was very, very expensive at that time, considering what we were earning. And there was a time when we were not even earning. But because of my belief in the Adventist education, I had to say, keep them, I'm going to look for a job, and I will pay you. So that can tell you that I believe in Adventist system of education. It was like expensive, but later on you realize that there is nothing good that is cheap. It is very, very good, and it pays off. And therefore, it is not expensive in the long run.
That's profound. Now, looking at, you mentioned earlier that every government is interested or protects the educational system because that's very crucial for them. In the Adventist setting, we have stakeholders who should be the Adventist church itself. What should be their interest? What should they be aware of in relation to Adventist education? The government watches over its schools. As Adventists, as an Adventist church, what should they be looking out for or protecting in the Adventist schools?
You know, I don't think there is any government that is not interested in good citizens. So we share that. If the outcome of our school or school system are going to be good citizens, the government is interested in that. Because the development of a curriculum the government is aware that there is explicit curriculum and there is a hidden curriculum. The government is aware of that. And they need to know what our explicit curriculum is, which is going to be according to the government policies. And we intend to generate or to have the outcome of the Adventist education, citizens prepared to live in this society as good citizens whose philosophy are based on the truth. There is no government who is not interested in such kind of an organization. So I'm very comfortable with the Adventist school system because of what we believe should be the outcomes of schooling. Even as we think of competency-based curriculum in Kenya, there is no school that started that in Kenya here, if not Adventist schools, that have the work-study program from elementary school. So our children are scaled from elementary school as they go to high school. We do not just wait until they go to college. So they should model, many governments should model from the Adventist institution. And so everything that we do, you know, when we have children in school and they are in charge of maintenance, they are in charge of the kitchen, they are the ones, they have time when they are on work program, they have gone to cook. That is competency-based. Even now, I think our schools are ahead of the system that the government is trying to achieve. And therefore, I see that there is nothing to protect, there's nothing to hide. But at the same time, when it comes to integration of faith and learning, faith is just a belief and a way of life. And if we model a way of life that is helping our learners to see mentors in life and somebody that they can say, I like this way of life, I'm influenced by this, and I would like to be this when I grow up. You know, I was looking at a cartoon this morning where somebody has asked, a policeman is asking his child, what would you like to be when you grow up? And the child answers, live. Because of what is happening now in the world. There is corona and there is fighting all over, demonstrations all over. So the automatic answer that came out of that child, I would like to live when I grow up. I would like to be alive. You know, so what we show in our institutions influence the minds that are still being formed. And if they are influenced to be good citizens, like I started by saying, American citizens are Americans. When they come out, you see them. You realize that they're Americans and they long to go back to America. The same with Sweden. I'm just giving examples of a few places where I've lived before. So if we can have those kind of developed citizens who are proud of who are patriotic and proud of their countries, and those citizens who are proud to live in this world and miss the world to come because of the truth that they have learned, I think that's the goal. That's the philosophy that we want to practice, to employ, to enhance, to have as our individual teacher's philosophy to govern our way of life, to be able to live here and miss the place that we hear about, be citizens of that kingdom as well.
From what you've just said, it makes me feel that graduates from Adventist institutions are at an advantage compared to students from non-Adventist institutions. What is your view on that? It is definite.
Anybody who has the truth has life. If you have the truth, you have life. And therefore, if you are governed by a philosophy that is based on the truth, you have life. But that life does not come because of the organization. It comes to you only if it helps you develop a personal philosophy of life that makes you a good citizen where you live now, and that helps you to regain that image that was lost and be a candidate for the country, to be a citizen for the country, be a member of that nation that Christ is coming for. So I would say that anybody who has the truth has life, and you are at an advantage over those who do not.
That's profound. Now, finally, how does the understanding of the Adventist philosophy of education help in putting into perspective the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Those who know the truth are not afraid. They are not afraid of what goes on. They fear not. And you know, even fear not is a philosophy. Fear not. Love your neighbor. Those are philosophies of life, which you gain as you go through a school system that is based on truth. So you do not live with fear. So even at a time like this, when so many things are happening, those who have a philosophy, especially when they have learned some truth, they are gone, they base whatever influences their minds on what they have read, what they have heard about this truth, which the philosophy of our schools and personal philosophies of life should be anchored on, are not afraid. Because, first of all, we know that we are not here forever. And we also know that these things will come. That source of truth has not hidden this truth from us. The pestilences will come. And so, in the context of COVID-19, I would say that those who have the truth based in the Bible understand that this is not a time to fear. For the same God says, fear not. Even when these things come, we should not be afraid of anything.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for sharing profound truths. And therefore, viewers, there you are. Fear not. There you have it today. We have learned that understanding the truth helps us to not fear in times of challenges. Thank you so much for your time.
Welcome, and thank you for having me. Thank you.